Hello and welcome to our 7-8 minutes of weekly Torah talk. This will be an annual talk about Passover, and I'd like to introduce our guest. He's Rabbi Daniel Reifman. Rabbi Reifman teaches at the Pardes Institute for Jewish Studies in Jerusalem and at the Institute for Advanced Torah Study at Bar Ilan, and he is also the Rosh Kollel of the Drisha Summer Kollel. So, hello, Rabbi, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So something we can all easily identify with today happens on the night of the Exodus, the night before the people of Israel leave Egypt. God tells them that they must stay home. They cannot leave their houses. Why?
So what the Torah tells us is that there is a Magefa, there is the last of the 10 plagues that's about to be visited on Egypt. And as opposed to all of the other plagues where God distinguishes between the Egyptians and the Israelites and saves the Israelites from the plague, in this case, that's not a done deal. The Israelites have to stay in their houses, and if they wander out of their houses, the plague will be visited potentially on them as well.
Right. We remember that even when there was, for example, the darkness, we are told by the Midrashim that the people of Israel could walk and see.
Right, that's the most striking one. There's darkness everywhere, but the Israelites have light. That's
Right.
It's astonishing, and the Midrash draws out that distinction where it's the darkness was so real for the Egyptians that it was paralyzing, and yet for the Israelites they could see and they could.
But that's not the case on the last night.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So there is this strange notion that this last plague potentially targets the Israelites as well. And again, you have to wonder why, right? Why this time, and why in general? Why is that experience of knowing that they're in danger part and parcel of the Exodus experience? There's actually a fascinating midrash that talks about this. Actually, for those who are doing Daf Yomi, the daily Daf of Gemara, this is in Masechet Bava Batra, which we will get to in a few years' time.
Right.
The Gemara asks exactly that question: what does it mean for the Israelites not to be able to go outside? And the answer the Gemara gives is fascinating. It says, once the destroyer is given permission to destroy, he does not distinguish between the righteous and the wicked. There's something that's been loosed on that night that is uncontrollable, that in a sense, even God can't fully control, which is, of course, a very difficult theological notion, but that's the way the Talmud describes it.
And it also means that the destroyer itself is not God.
Right.
Who's the destroyer?
Actually, the commentaries have an interesting time with this, right? In the Haggadah, for example, we say it's not a malach, it's not a saraf, it's not any messenger or angel. It's God Himself who visited the last plague on Egypt, and yet there is a sense that it's not controllable, right? So obviously, to some extent, it is controllable because none of the Israelites actually die. Those who stay in their homes are saved. Hence the name Passover. God passes over their houses.
Well, maybe unlike today, all Jews obey the instructions and stay home.
Right. So this is a question that we have nowadays too. If the government adds additional restrictions, how much can we assume that people will actually listen to them? Right.
Okay. So there is this force of evil, and it cannot distinguish between the right people and the wrong people, the people who are supposed to be punished and the Israelites who are supposed to be safe?
Right. So that's the sense you get from Midrash. Of course, the ritual of the Korban Pesach is designed specifically to combat that sense. What are the Israelites commanded to do? They're commanded to take the blood of the Pesach sacrifice and spread it on the doorpost, and the door becomes this central image in the Exodus story, right? The doorway being that liminal space between inside and out. That threshold they are not allowed to cross. And that becomes, the doorway becomes a kind of barrier between themselves and the outside world. And God says, that's a sign, the blood on the doorpost is a sign for me that I should pass over your houses. So on the one hand, we have a sense of an uncontrollable, sweeping, indiscriminate judgment. On the other hand, we have this sense that they can control it through this ritual, and that God actively acknowledges their actions and saves them. That's one key element of the Korban Pesach ritual as the Jews experience it in Egypt.
Well, you can almost suspect that he tells them to eat meat at home because he knows that this will keep them inside. As long as you serve some food.
Once we get past Pesach this year, the question is where will all of the Israelis have their Yom Ha'atzmaut barbecues? But if you tell them everybody have your barbecue inside your home, right, everybody's
Right.
It's interesting that element doesn't get preserved for generations, right? The only time that the Israelites are commanded, Jews throughout the centuries are commanded to continue the Korban Pesach ritual, but the blood on the doorpost is unique to the night of the Exodus. And that's really interesting, because what it means is that it's the night of the Exodus they have to experience this sense of danger. Whereas for generations, once we leave Egypt, the Pesach becomes something very different. It becomes a sign not of danger and of risk and of feeling like there's something threatening us, but of freedom, right? And that's the experience that we have at our Seder tables, where we sit relaxed and we take our time, and there's no sense that there's something threatening. In fact, it's called the Leil Shimurim, right? We open the door and Eliyahu Hanavi is standing there, and we feel perfectly confident inviting Eliyahu Hanavi in. We don't even offer him gloves or hand sanitizer, even though he's been visiting. For all the other Jews around the world, it's a Leil Shimurim. It's a night where we feel safe and secure.
Right. Again, speculating, I would also say maybe they can put blood on the doors because these are houses that they are about to leave. These will not be the permanent residence in which they stay.
Fascinating, right? In other words, they don't have to worry about the landlord coming after them for the cleaning fee.
Right.
Right. And if you think about it that way, that these are houses about to leave, the morning after the Exodus, the door requires a very different kind of meaning. On the night of the Exodus, the door is this kind of force field of protecting them from the forces of evil that are outside. Come morning, when they're allowed to leave their homes, the door is a gateway to freedom. So the door, being a two-sided space, gets played both ways in terms of meaning. It's a protection from the outside, but it's also the gateway to freedom. Once the painting the blood on the door is also significant in the sense that now they see the door in a way that maybe they never saw it before. Right now, the doorway is a way out. Now it's a space they never have to come back to.
Right. One of the interesting things about the commentary concerning Pesach is that on the one hand we assume, and you said that the night of the Exodus was the first time we celebrated Pesach, and then when you look at Midrashim who deal with our forefathers, they seem to claim that our forefathers before the real Pesach also observed some kind of Pesach.
Right. So there's that the famous midrash when Lot invites the angels into his home and he serves them matzah. Right?
So we are going back to the days of Abraham.
Back in the days of Abraham, right? So Lot is Abraham's nephew, and the story told in Genesis 19 is that this is the night that the city of Sodom is about to be destroyed. Two angels visit Sodom to test the city to see if it should be destroyed. Lot, who's Abraham's nephew living in the city of Sodom, invites the angels into his home. He's the only hospitable person, or his family is the only hospitable family in the entire city of Sodom. And he prepares them a meal, and it says he prepares them a feast, and the one dish that it identifies in that feast is matzah. Why matzah? Says Midrash, well, it's obvious. It was Pesach, right? And you're kind of scratching your head thinking, well, right, like that's completely anachronistic. And the more you look at the midrash, okay, you have to take it literally. That's an approach to a question about midrash in general. But as soon as you see the story unfold, you realize how many parallels there are between Lot's experience in Sodom and what the Israelites experience in Egypt. Sodom is about to be destroyed. Egypt is about to be visited by this terrible plague. The townspeople surround Lot's house and threaten him and say, send out your guests and we want to abuse them. Lot refuses, and then the angels pull him inside. The house like the house of the Lot's house, like the house of the Israelites, becomes a kind of sanctuary, becomes a refuge. And Lot very much feels that danger that the Israelites feel. In fact, when the angels finally pull him out of the city, against his wishes, by the way, right? It says there's an interesting connection in terms of the language. It says that Lot hesitates, vayit mama in the Hebrew.
Right.
And of course, the reason that the Israelites are told to bake matzah, or we find out why they bake matzah, because lo yachlu lehitmameh, they could not wait.
Right.
Right. So when Lot baked matzah, he has no idea that he's about to run out of the city. But whether he knows it or not, he's about to be in a hurry, just like the Israelites were in a hurry. And then when they pull him out of the city, he says, "Wait, I can't run." They say, "No, you have to run to those lest you be swept away." There's also that sense of like this sweeping, indiscriminate judgment that's about to be visited and on Sodom, and might in fact catch Lot in its clutches. Very much like what the Midrash talks about the night of the Exodus in Egypt.
And again, on the eve of Pesach, we find ourselves having to stay within our houses when forces of evil are, well, not destroying the world, but
creating a sense of panic.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, it's right. So in that sense, this perspective on Pesach is, I think, especially appropriate this year, or especially jarring, because as I said before, that sense of panic and danger is something that we don't usually associate with our experience of Pesach. That's something that we left in Egypt. We left that door already. We left that behind, and yet this year we feel it anew. So that's kind of jarring, and I think as people get ready for their Passover Seders, we're not really comfortable with this kind of experience.
So maybe the meaning of what we say at the closing of the Seder, Leshana Haba B'Yerushalayim HaBniyah, means that Leshana Haba we don't have to stay inside. We can go back to the ability to walk around and travel around.
Right. So in that sense, maybe it is especially appropriate. And there's the hope that, every year when we say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, that the Passover Seder is a transformative experience. And this year, I think we'll feel that especially strongly. Pesach is a time to channel that energy of saying we hope that the world that we is gripped by panic right now will be a different place in the coming year.
Rabbi, thank you for a fascinating conversation, and Chag Sameach.
Thank you so much. Chag Sameach, Chag Kosher v'Sameach u'Bari. A very happy, healthy, and kosher Pesach.
Thank you.